We're seeing some important people at this critical time in the nation's history. The top 6 ministers in the Gillard government have got around 183 years of professional experience in their lives. Only 13 years of those experiences have been in the private sector, and 11 of those years has been in unions or as lawyers. So we've got the nation being run by people that have only had two years experience to frame our budgets. And here at budget time we have a annual ritual where people jump around and try to add up the figures and see that the nation will work. And it should be the Prime Minister and the government that sets the agenda that we will follow. But it hasn't been in this country for a long time. The agenda's been set by the people who run the departments and the bureaucracy, and moreover, from a political sense, it's been set by the lobbyists in this country, which have corrupted and undermined the very essence of our democracy. And a lobbyist firm works on the basis that it has a former Liberal minister or former Labor minister. And if you're a business guy like me and you've got $1 million to spend and you want to change policy, you just give them the $1 million and they get you the outcome you want. That's what happens. Now, I know how it works, because for 40 years I was a member of the Liberal National Parties. I was the former state director in Queensland, the former spokesman, official spokesman of the party. I was a life member of the Liberal Party, and I was a delegate to the convention last year in Melbourne, which overwhelmingly endorsed the system that we have lobbyists running our democracy. That's too important in this country. I've just come from the War Memorial, talking to their director up there, and in my family we've got a strong commitment to this country. When people went overseas, and we remember Anzac Day, they didn't go as members of the Liberal Party or the Labor Party, they went as Australians. All in all, 90% of Australians support what's good for this country. We don't focus on that, we focus on the things that divide us. So we think it's time to unite the country, to take back the spirit which was there of our Constitution, when it was envisaged that people would serve this country not for 30 years, not for 20 years, but for a couple of terms and contribute to the nation. And the whole concept of public service is gone. These days, if you want to be in politics, you graduate from university, become a research officer, for a member of parliament, get onto a minister's staff, then become an advisor, then a minister, and you go and work for a lobbyist. That's not a good career cycle. It needs to be changed, and we think we're going to change it. Right across this country, we'll be standing 150 candidates in every seat of the House of Representatives and every Senate situation. We've got thousands of people. We've had 1 million hits on our website in the last 2 weeks. Why? Because Tony Abbott and Julia Gillard are the same. There's no difference in this country, and we need change. We've seen recently with the disability allowance scheme that they've announced a new levy, a new tax. That's a sign of failure. It means they haven't been able to manage their budget properly. They haven't been able to deliver for the Australian people. You've all been running around mad about the Gonski report. Well, the Gonski report is a report on the Prime Minister. She was the Minister for Education before she was Prime Minister, and it just says she's failed, like she's done in everything else. So how long will we go on just taxing Australians, driving them down lower and lower into the ground until we say this has got to stop?
What in the world was happening with Peter Slipper?
What is the latest on the registration of your party?
Well, maybe I can do both of those together. I know there's a lot of interest about Peter Slipper. He's a wonderful guy, isn't he? He applied to join our party like many other Australians, filled in his application in writing and submitted it to us. And of course he doesn't have a criminal record, and he isn't a member of any political party, so if we were not to accept his application, we'd be breaching the Anti-Discrimination Act, and we'd find what we're trying to do would be in court for 3 months. So we accepted his application, and then he was subject to the constitution of the party, and the relevant committee decided that his membership cease. And that's all we know about Peter Slipper. In relation to the membership of our party, we've got literally thousands of members who have joined the party in the last 2 weeks. So when we had to register yesterday, they went down to the office of the Australian Electoral Commission and they lodged the application with a list of 700 members, much more than the 500 required by the Act. However, the AEC called us back and said, we'll only accept it if you've got 550 exactly, because we want to make our determination on a small part of your membership. And the basic rights of Australians are that they can have a political party registered if they've got more than 500 members. So we wanted to submit the whole membership, thousands of members, but they didn't want to take it. And this is just the roadblocks that are put in the way of democracy. You've seen what happened to the Katter Party when they tried to register their name. You've seen what happened to Pauline Hanson. She ended up in jail. That doesn't encourage people to come forward. But I don't mind. If they want to put me in jail, I'm ready to go. You know, I've had a good life in this country. I don't mind if they want to take legal action against me, because we'll be taking action in the High Court or the Federal Court to demand that our full membership is considered by the Australian Electoral Office. And this rort of trying to scare people to stand in our democracy is going to come to an end one way or another, and we're going to do it.
Ms. Palmer, can you appreciate people's scepticism when you were talking about lobbyists earlier, considering how much money you've donated to political parties over the years?
Well, a donation is a donation. It's given freely. And of course I was a large donor to the Liberal National parties in the last state election, and of course it's well known that I never got any favours, I never sought any. I've been in politics for 40 years. I joined the Country Party back in 1969. I was there when there was the name change to the National Party.
Can you appreciate people's scepticism?
Well, scepticism is for them. I'm here about reality. We won't win all of the votes, but we're offering ourselves some service. You get scepticism because you're frightened to consider other options. Everyone, including Bob Katter, Pauline Hanson, Tony Abbott, Julia Gillard, should be able to offer themselves for service to the nation. It's up for the nation to decide. This whole concept of Australians, of attacking people, is the wrong thing. I'm not important. What's important are the ideas. Governments may come and go, but ideas go on forever. And all of you people know how boring these people are. All of you know how they avoid questions, mate, and they wait to an advisor to come up and tell them what to think. Well, I'm not waiting for any advisor. You know, when I answer your question, I'm fair dinkum. And that's what this country needs. We need to get fair dinkum again, and you think it can't be done, but we'll do it.
You said you're meeting with a number of key people today.
Yeah.
Who are you meeting with? Are you meeting with any federal politicians, any other federal politicians, to get them to join your party?
We're meeting with citizens of Australia.
So you're meeting with any
it's
people
funny
in
how
that
you,
building
it's,
over there?
it's funny how you make a difference between politicians and citizens of Australia. I can appreciate that. I can understand that, because you see, for 30 years we've had Julia Gillard and Tony Abbott working their way to the top. And if you cook a stew for 30 years, you know what rises to the top, and that's what's happening in this country.
So do any of those citizens of Australia that you're meeting with have a job description of being an MP in the federal parliament?
I think a lot of them have got a strong concern about this country and what they should do, but a lot of them are scared. They're frightened. They're intimidated. They're not, even though it's a criminal offence to intimidate someone that's in elected office, that's what's happening in this country. They're stood over. They're talking about things of endorsement, what will happen to their future. Well, I tell you what, I'm not corruptible. They can offer me $1 billion, it won't change my mind. I've got a strong commitment to this country and a strong resolve to do the right thing.
But by you not answering the question, it sounds like you are meeting with MPs.
Well, I could be, yeah.
Can you suggest that the Electoral Commission is discriminating against your party when they're very clear on their website that they only accept 550 members in the list, and that standard applies to everybody, and is to help with the AEC's?
Well, help them, because they only take 3 months to consider 500 members. We do it in 2 days in industry. That's what's wrong with this country. But firstly, hold on, let me answer your question if you want me to. Section 41 of the Constitution says that every Australian will have the right to vote. And having the right to vote brings the right to choose. You don't have a situation where a bureaucrat says if the requirement under law is that you have 500 members, and if you've got 5,000, and you should be able to submit the whole 5,000, because that evidences you've got 500. Now, Gillard and Abbott, or their predecessors, set this up to entrench the two-party system. That's what it's about. It's not about the Constitution. And when you take them back to the Constitution, and you take them to the High Court, you'll find a different result.
Are they trying to make it easier for you by saying that you only need 500, 550 and not the 700 that you gave?
Look, the whole thing's rubbish, to be honest with you. The situation is, whether you're a registered party or not, you can stand for an election. If you're a registered party, you get 2 benefits. One is you have your party name on the ballot. The other one is that you get funding after the election. I'm not too worried about the funding after the election. And if I have to write to every Australian directly, they'll know who our candidates are in every seat. They'll know it not just because we write to them, not just because we advertise it, because they'll seek them out. Because right across this country, people have had enough. They've had enough with politicians. They've had enough with Julia Gillard. They've had enough with Tony Abbott. They've had enough with seeing their disposable income diminish. All their solution is to tax people more, make their life harder. The government's role is not just about making a profit. Surely, if you look at our gross national product, it includes money for defence forces, for prisons. It includes money for ambulances that take the carnage off our roads. It includes money for locking people up and away, our police forces, and a whole lot of things like that. But it doesn't include anything, any measurement for a smile on a child's face in the morning. It doesn't include anything for the strength of our marriages. It doesn't include anything for who we are as Australians that make this click. So being in government's not just about making money. It's not just about balancing the budget. It's about making a better life for the citizens that live in this country. If you want to go onto the Liberal Party website, you'll see our constitution's the same as the Liberal Party, and they've got the exact same form. And as you know, our policies were exactly the same as the Liberal Party, except on 5 issues. Maybe I should explain to you what those 5 issues are so it's understood. Firstly, we're different from the Liberal Nationals, and we don't agree that you can be a lobbyist and be an office bearer in your political party. So if you want to have lobbyists in power, vote for Tony Abbott, don't vote for me. Secondly, we think we should abolish the carbon tax to reduce electricity prices, not from when we get elected, but from their introduction. So we want to refund to people in this country the absorbent amount of money that they've paid and bring up their standard of living. Thirdly, we believe that 25% of the wealth that's generated from a region should be reinvested in a region. If you go to the Hunter Valley, you can see the environmental disasters there because the government hasn't put that money in. Fourthly, we think our mineral wealth that exists in Queensland and Western Australia that we export every year for $40 a tonne or $50 a tonne, that the Japanese take and process in Japan and sell for $20,000 a tonne, should be processed in some of our states like Victoria, Tasmania, South Australia, who don't have a manufacturing industry. How can it be that the Japanese wages are so high, they're higher electricity prices, and they suffer from the tyranny of distance, but they've built the third most powerful economy on the world on Australian resources? It's a time we did some of these things in this country. It's not that hard. And our last policy is on refugees. And that's a bit of a complicated one, so I'll explain it to you, is that we believe that we're wasting $5 billion on the refugees in this country, the money we're spending, and having our Navy blockade the Indian Ocean, in putting people in starlacks and separating women and families together for an extended period. So let me finish.
Can I take you back though? So your party doesn't have a constitution, it just says...
Oh, we have a constitution. Come up with me today to Brisbane, I'll give you a copy. Okay, you can come on my plane if you want to have a copy, so they'll shut you up for a while. But what we're saying is that with refugees, we could take that $5 billion and put it into education reforms. So what's the solution for the refugee problem? Just what happens in every other country of the world. If you come to the airport to board with your family in Jakarta, it might cost you $800 to fly here. With Julia Gillard and Tony Abbott, they both say you can't board if you haven't got an Australian visa. So that means you go to a people smuggler and pay $20,000. They've created that market for the people smuggler. We're responsible for it. But let me finish. If you pay your $800, you've got to board the plane with a visa. If when you arrive in Melbourne or Sydney, you know where you're coming, you haven't got to fly around and see them. They can have a hearing prima facie for 3 days or 2 days. They can determine if they're a genuine person to come to stay at this country or if they're not. And if they're not, they can fly them back. That's what the United States does. That's what Europe does. But we want to create problems. We want to create racism in our country, and we want to talk about division. We've got to concentrate more in Australia on what we've got in common. But it was wonderful to talk to all you people, to meet you. I no doubt I'll see you all again. But we've got a strong commitment to this country, and you'll be seeing right across this nation a whole lot of changes taking place, and you'll be following us no doubt in other media outlets. Well, if you want to go for a government tender, and you talk to anyone that's in the tendering business, I'll tell you they put 150% on for tenders to the Commonwealth Government. That's been going on for 10 years. 50% for the tax, 100% to put the money offshore in Switzerland, not to regenerate it. So first of all, I'd make sure that we had people running our government that had some commercial experience and didn't waste our money. Secondly, I would try to reduce taxation and free more money up into the private sector so there could be more jobs for our people. They're two of our main things. But this budget, it's irrelevant. It's not what's going to happen in this country. First of all, we need a treasurer that can count. Poor old Wayne Swan, you know, he said it was going to balance, and now he thinks we're about 12 or $17 billion over. We're not $17 billion over, we're about $60 billion over. Why is that case? Because if you look at the MSN rollout, internet, whatever you want to call it, it's not worth anything. It's hardly got users that'll play it. Try to sell it at International Bank, but it's on our balance sheet at $30 or $40 billion. So they're hiding all of that. No one's come to terms with reality. That money could be spent making our citizens' life better. I've got nothing to gain personally from being elected as Prime Minister. It's not about me, it's about the ideas. As I said before, governments will come and go, leaders will come and go, but ideas go on forever. We want to have some good ideas about this country. See you later.